go into our virtual environment, and we have our Windows XP machine, and it's got Wireshark running on it, and it also has a Windows version of Netcat. So if I do a clear screen to make it clear, Netcat -L, which is for listen, -P, which is for port, and I'll put a listen on port 33,000. Now the actual command prompt doesn't return back, but if we go and we open another command prompt, and we'll put it here side by side, we'll change our font just so it looks a little better. And now, if we use our ever popular netstat tool, type the find str for find string, and we're looking for port 33,000. So when we do that, now we actually see 33,000 is in a listening state. So that is the Netcat tool. So the Netcat tool is actually bound to port 33,000. The power of the Netcat tool is we can bind anything to this port. So if I break Netcat, just to show you that there's no smoke and mirrors, now there's no 33,000. And now if I go and I do an actual NC-H, which is help, it shows me all the actual options I have for the Netcat tool. What's really cool is I have a -D option, which means I can detach it from the console, which is a stealth mode. Or how about this one, a -E option, program, inbound program to exec. So what this says is I'm going to allow you to connect to my port, and I'm going to run an executable file. This is the power of the tool Netcat. So now let's go do our listener again, but do it E.exe. Now when we come over here and we look at our netstat find string, we've got it. We do an IP config, and we'll see we're on port 145. So let's go over to our Kali Linux machine and use Netcat like Telnet to connect. So do a Netcat 192.168.177.145. The port we were on, 33123. See what happened? Now we have an actual Windows shell. See, Microsoft Windows, Windows XP version 5.1. So we're actually on that machine. So if we do a dir, we can see actually the Netcat file itself, Metasploits on that machine, as well as others. So what we've done with the Netcat tool is we've planted a backdoor. And that's a lot of times what Netcat's used for. It can also be used to send actual binary files into a target, worms, viruses, and malicious code, and those types of things. So Netcat's an extremely powerful tool. So if I do a netstat-an, and I pipe it to find str 33,000. Here's my connection. So you see there's the connection to port 33,000 from my Kali Linux machine. It's in an established state. And this is the power of Netcat. And there's also a tool called CryptCat that does this encrypted, because there's one problem with Netcat, and we will explore that now. And that problem is everything we're doing here is in clear text. So if I go here and I follow the stream, look at that. That's everything I've set up in clear text. So now I actually can compromise and see all the data that was sent between the client and the server. So if you set it up, you might want to use CryptCat, because CryptCat actually has encryption on it. But in most cases, it's easy to set up another way. Let's look at one more thing. So we'll do our capture, clear this capture, restart. So restart our capture, go back to our Netcat tool, break it, start a listener on a port like 443. Now we're listening on port 443. Verify our ports in a listening state. 443, there it is. It's there listening. So let's go back to Kali Linux. Let's open another tab. Let's do a Netcat to 192.168.177. tenure.145, port 443. Now we've got the same shell, same as we had before. It's a little bit different. So I don't know if task list is on here, but we'll try it. Task list, doesn't look like, oh, it is actually on there. This tells us the processes and everything running on the machine. So this shell on the machine is going to be at the privileges of whatever the user's at when we actually execute the code. So now we switch back to our Windows XP, and by doing that, we see we still have the listener there. It's 443. So 443 is HTTPS. So see, here's our three-way handshake, send, send, ACK. So there's an opening of a connection to HTTPS, but guess what? This isn't HTTPS traffic, but most of your monitoring tools, when they see HTTPS, what do they think? It's encrypted. And they don't ignore it. In most cases, they don't look at it. So if we go follow a TCP stream, we see that it's not encrypted, it's actually in clear text. Okay, a lot of different things you can do. So this is something you want to be aware of when it comes to using different tools in our red team hacking. We'll do one last option. So if we go back to our Netcat tool and we break it again, and we'll start it up on another port. Let's pick another port that's usually a fun one to use, SSH. That's a good port to use. All right, but we're going to add one more option to this, -D. First, we got to use a number. SSH is port 22, but Netcat doesn't know that. Okay, so now see the -D option? So now if I close this, watch what happens when I do my find string. Even I closed it, the window's gone, right? Because you might say, well, Kevin, the window's up. We might get caught. Well, all we use is a -D option, and we do that. Look, there's our port 22 wide open. So now we go back to our Kali Linux, and we open another tab once again, and we do a netcat 192.168.177.145 to SSH. And now we're connected. We look on a Windows XP machine, the port's open, and now if we do it again, it's established. So we have a connection now because we set up the backdoor Trojan. If we come over here and we clear this, and we look for port 22. And there it is. TCP, HTTPS, and there's SSH. So the protocol looks like SSH. So anybody looking at their actual protocol analyzers or their monitoring devices usually they will believe SSH is encrypted. So we just right-click SSH, follow the stream, and that's definitely not encrypted. So there you see the power of one of our tools that we talked about in our hacking toolkit, and that is Netcat. As we said, Netcat is the Swiss Army knife when it comes to doing hacking. We can do all kinds of cool stuff. We can use Netcat as a client. You saw that when we used Netcat to connect, like Telnet. And we can use Netcat as a server where we connect to it, and as we showed, we could bind the command.exe shell to it. Remember, we not only have to bind the actual command.exe shell, we can actually bind any program. A worm, you got a piece of malware you want to bind, if it's part of your scope of work, you can bind it to a port and see if anybody connects to that and then gets infected. Okay? Last thing we'll show is an option that's on the Windows version of Netcat. It's not on the option for Netcat that's available with Unix and Linux, and that is the -L. That is a persistent listener, because what you may have noticed is when you connect with Netcat, then the actual shell, once you exit, the port closes down. If we use the -L, it's the persistent listener. And so if we look at our help file, listen harder, re-listens on socket close. So what it means is if we use Netcat, we actually are going to listen. Even when we close it, it's actually going to continue listening on the port even after we close our connection. And this concludes the demo of Netcat, the Swiss Army knife, and one of your tools you should become very familiar with.